The navigation screen just started looping, recalculating, and I knew I was close. 20 miles out, the highway just thinned. My phone went dead. I wasn't even surprised. It was like the town had been waiting for me to stop pretending I'd ever really left.
I saw you first, parked at the edge of Main Street, engine still ticking, hands frozen on the wheel. You looked exactly like the file photos I'd been shown as a kid. Same dark hair, same jaw set, like you were already bracing for a fight. I stood by the library in my stupid pressed shirt, 10 years old on the outside, and thought, she's not feeling it yet.
The tug. That's what I kept waiting for. Every nightmare I'd had since 13 was about that feeling, something hooking into my spine and reeling me backward. But sitting in that rental car, I felt nothing. Just a hollow space where the dread was supposed to be. And somehow that nothing was worse.
You stepped out into that crisp October air, and I watched your shoulders stay tight. The town square was the same as always, cobblestones worn smooth, the well squatting right in the center. No bucket, no rope, just a stone throat. And Mrs. Finch, dusted in flour, already in the bakery doorway like she'd been planted there.
Ellie Wade? Lord above, it can't be. I remember her voice, older than God, but still sharp. She told me everyone thought I'd died. Said the announcement ran in the Herald after my dad passed. I laughed, but it wasn't funny. I'd spoken to my father the night before. He's alive in Arizona.
I could have told you then that she wasn't lying, not exactly. The Herald prints what the currents want printed. But you wouldn't have believed me, not yet. So I just waited by the well while you walked toward it, your boots clicking like a countdown.
I leaned over the stone lip. Inside, darkness just kept going. No glint of water, no bottom. And then something shifted. Not a sound, not a movement I could see. More like furniture being rearranged in a room miles underground. For 1 second, I had this skin-crawling sensation that the well was looking back at me.
I said, they don't like when people stare too long. And when you turned around, you saw a 10-year-old in a button-down and shined shoes, hair hanging in his eyes. I told you the currents didn't like it. You asked, what currents? Like it was a nonsense word. But your voice had a crack in it.
You didn't answer. You just tilted your head and said, "You're the one who got away. They've been waiting for you." Then you ran off toward the library, and your shoes didn't make a sound on the cobblestones. I should have gotten back in the car right then.
Instead, you went to your mother's house. I knew you would. The porch swing still hung from those rusted chains. Inside, dust sheets on the furniture, her reading glasses on the entry table. The kitchen calendar frozen on the month you left. Milk in the fridge, 15 years old, still fresh enough to pour.
I poured it down the drain and watched it swirl away, and my chest got so tight I could barely breathe. That night, I lay in my childhood bed, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars. Around 3 in the morning, I heard water moving through the walls, not pipes, something too deliberate. It circled the house and pooled under my floor.
The currents always check on a new arrival. They flow through every house in Chaltier's well, like veins. You put your ear to the floorboards. I know you heard them. Hundreds of voices, right under the dripping, whispering in layers no living person should understand.
I didn't sleep. Fog the next morning was so thick it pressed against the windows like wet cotton. The streets were empty, and I heard chimes somewhere, ringing in a pattern that wasn't music. It was Communication. I went to the municipal building to ask about selling my mother's property, and the clerk said, "Mrs. Wade, we've been expecting you." Like the whole building had been holding its breath.
He showed you the covenant. I'd signed mine, too, on my 13th birthday. Decades ago, by the calendar. All children of the town sign. It binds us to what's beneath. Your signature was there, in childish letters, dated 3 days before you left. I bet your stomach dropped straight through the floor.
I told him I never signed it. He smiled and said I had. "You've always known what's beneath," he said, "and the worst part is my body knew." I remembered the cold of the town hall, the smell of old paper. I could almost feel a pen in my 13-year-old hand. I grabbed the leather folio and ran.
Outside, the fog had pulled back just enough to show the square. Everyone was gathered around the well. Loose circle, heads tilted, listening. Their postures all exactly the same. I stood apart from them and caught your eye. I didn't wave. I just turned and walked to the clock tower. You followed me up those narrow stairs without a word.
From up there, we watched them sway like seaweed in a tide, and I saw them. The filaments, thin silvery lines running from the well to every single person, like marionette strings. I whispered, "What are they doing?" And you said, "Communing with the currents."
I told you the town feeds it, and it feeds the town. You asked what it was. And I felt my face get old for a second, older than my body can hold. I said, it's what settled here long before Chaltier dug his well. It's what keeps everyone the same. It's why no one dies unless they try to leave.
I remembered every elder who never aged, every family that never moved, the census frozen at 1,876 year after year. I'd called it small town stagnation. But that wasn't it.
I said, the currents need bodies. When someone leaves, the current stretches. If they resist too long, it snaps, and they die.
But I got away.
You're the only one. And right then I pointed past the town limits, where the fog parted for just a breath. Beyond it wasn't farmland. It was void, emptiness, like the town was floating on nothing. I said, there's no way out anymore. There hasn't been for centuries.
I told you that was impossible. I drove here yesterday. You just looked at me and asked, "Can you remember the journey?" I opened my mouth to describe the 5-hour drive from the airport, but the details, the gas station, the turnoff, the dry hills, they just drained out of my head. I remembered the rental counter, and then I was here, parked at the edge of Main Street.
If that thought just hit a nerve, stay with me. Because that moment right there is the one I still dream about. You stared at me and whispered, "What are you?" And I had to tell you.
You said you were what I was meant to become, a conduit, a keeper. Every generation, one child is chosen to maintain the balance. When I escaped, screaming in the back of my dad's truck, you had to take my place.
I'm 93 years old. The currents keep me as I was when I swore the oath. I didn't want it, but I didn't have a choice. And neither do you. Not really.
I backed toward the stairs. I said I was leaving that day. You didn't try to stop me. You just said, even if you make it past the boundary, you'll find yourself back here. The currents have closed the loop. Chaltier's well doesn't exist in your world anymore.
The clock struck 13 right then. 13 chimes that vibrated in my ribs like a second heartbeat. You ran.
I ran across the square, past all those placid eyes. Got in the rental, tires screeching. The town shrank in my rearview mirror, fog rolling in like a wall. I pressed the accelerator harder, and then the steering wheel went slack. The car kept moving on its own, and the fog turned to water, dark, silent, pressing against the glass with impossible weight.
I felt it from the tower. The well doesn't just sit in the square. The whole town is the well, a plug between worlds. And what's beneath isn't water. It's something that used water to cross over a long time ago.
I was sinking. Through the windshield, I saw lights down there. An inverted town, older and stranger, silhouettes, moving in windows with movements too fluid for bone. The car settled on a street of black stone, and water started seeping through the seams, cold and patient.
They'd been waiting for someone who could move freely between above and below. Someone who'd escaped the currents once and might do it again, carrying passengers.
As the water rose to my chin, I made my choice. I wasn't going to drown. I was going to find my way back up, back through. And when I do, I'll seal the well properly, permanently, even if it means the town and everyone in it finally has to face what it means to truly end.
You started to swim. I felt the current shudder all the way up here, like a cable snapping strand by strand. I'm still standing in the clock tower, watching the well, and I know something's changed.
I'm still swimming, Michael, and I'm coming back. So I'm still swimming, but let's pull back for a second. While we were telling what happened, I kept noticing words that landed differently once I said them out loud. Like when I described the milk spiraling down the drain and my chest got tight, I almost used a simpler word, but swirl was the one that stuck.
Swirl. That's a good one. It means to move in a twisting, spiraling pattern, not just drain away, but circle and curl. The way the fog moved around your car, too. It swirled, didn't it? It makes the motion feel a little hypnotic.
Exactly. And then you said the townsfolk had placid eyes. I remember pausing on that word when you first said it to me in the clock tower. Placid means calm, peaceful on the surface, but not necessarily kind. It's that stillness that can hide something underneath.
Placid water is the most dangerous water because you don't see the current pulling you down. That's exactly why I chose it. Another one that stuck with me was covenant. The clerk showed you a covenant you didn't remember signing. Not a contract, not an agreement, a covenant. It carries a heavier weight, almost sacred, definitely binding for life.
I felt that weight. Covenant. The word itself sounds sealed. And you called yourself a conduit. That stopped me cold. A conduit is a channel, something that carries fluid or energy from one place to another. You were a 10-year-old boy shaped into a pipeline for whatever lives under that town.
Still am. Conduit comes from Latin, to lead together. I didn't know that then. I learned it later. But the word fits. I lead the currents together with the people. Another word you used when the fog parted was void. You looked past the town limits and saw not fields, but void.
Void. Complete emptiness. Nothingness. I needed a word that wasn't just dark or empty, because it felt more absolute than that, like the absence of existence itself. And then I saw those threads connecting everyone to the well. I called them filaments.
Filaments are very fine threads, like the wire inside a light bulb that glows. They were silver, delicate-looking, but unbreakable. That word made them sound almost biological, like nerves. And speaking of things that connect, you also said the townspeople swayed like marionettes.
Marionette. A puppet controlled from above by strings. I saw those silvery threads pulling, and that was the only word my brain could grab. The grammar we used mattered too, now that I think about it. When I said I had spoken to my father the night before, I used past perfect. Had spoken, it places that call firmly before I ever parked the car. It builds a timeline of what happened before what.
And I'd signed the covenant on my 13th birthday. That's, I had signed. Same tense. It pushes the signing way back into the past, before the present moment in the story. It makes you feel the trap was already set long before you even understood it.
There's also that line you said, even if you make it past the boundary, you'll find yourself back here. That's a first conditional. If you do this, present simple, you will get that result. It makes the threat sound factual, not dramatic, like stating a law of physics.
And when I told you they'd been waiting for someone who could move freely, they had been waiting. Past perfect continuous. It stretches the waiting over centuries, all the way up until the moment you sank. It gives the sentence so much patience and so much dread.
So there we were, in the middle of a nightmare, and the language itself was doing half the work. Swirl, Placid, Covenant, Conduit, Void, Filament, Marionette, and grammar that stacked time like layers of sediment. It's strange, knowing the words makes the memory even sharper.
Words are a little like the well. You can drop into them and keep falling. But at least with words, you can swim back up.